Hi, my name is Jazz, and I am the president and founder of Multilingual and Philanthropic Incorporated, and I wanted to make this video on talking about how teaching has helped me, teaching languages has helped me being able to learn more and also deepen my personal connections with my own languages as well. So the big obvious thing is that teaching languages does help you practice what you know. I think that's just an overall general sense of when you teach anything, is that being able to teach something allows you to say, to internally or out loud process what you have learned. It really and truly encourages me to do more research because as a teacher, I know that I don't know everything, especially because I'm teaching languages that are not my native language. And when you do more research, it allows you to constantly be a learner. So you're kind of like a facilitator or like a middleman. It's like, you're teaching something, but you're constantly getting information so that you can teach it to other people as well. So you want to constantly be like not a revolving door. I feel like that's not a very good analogy, but it's more of like you're constantly revolving to where you're learning information, simplifying it, and putting it into ways to where other people, such as your students, can actually understand it. So for me, I do the hard work because I'm the one that's doing all the research and then being paid to teach it as well. So, there's those components. And anytime I'm not sure of something, like for example, the subjunctive in the French language, it is complicated from what I've been told, but after doing some research, and I'll actually say that I only learned how to use the subjunctive because I was learning the congiuntivo, which is the Italian equivalent of the subjunctive when I was taking an advanced Italian course, and then I was like, that's how they use it in the French language. So I ended up, because they both follow the same rules with congiuntivo and le subjonctif. They're the exact same forms of moods of conjugation. The only thing is that, of course, it's just two different languages. So making that connection and then being able to teach that. And even doing my own research so that when I create my own course content, it makes much more sense. And I can actually make more connections and make more accurate examples. It also heightens my translation abilities because even for me, I know that in order to understand a language, you have to make a connection with it to your own language because it's going to be easier to remember. It's like if you associate a specific memory of, let's say, your mom's home cooking, as an example, with smell, you're going to remember, something will remind you of that memory, so it'll trigger you to remember that by something you smell that is similar to something that brings you back to your mom's home cooking. And I got that example because I recently just watched Ratatouille last week, and I just was like, I'm going to die in France right now. So those personal connections are going to help you trigger your memory. So in that sense, is a lot of times I have been able to take those concepts and explain it into L1, for example in English, and then being able to say, okay, you understand this kind of sentence in English. So in French, it's the same thing. It's just that this is how you explain it, or this is how it is structured. So it's heightened my translation abilities to be able to make connections with L1 and L2, or whatever your target language is, really. Okay. It also helped, with helping me, with teaching, because of the fact that I'm paid to teach and people are looking at me for accurate information, that also motivates me to figure out how to take certain concepts and then being able to simplify it to where you're able to simplify it to whoever it is, because sometimes not everyone can understand things the same way. So I try to take concepts, like I said, with the subjunctive being completely confusing, being able to take the skill to be able to take complex things and to simplify it into something that someone can understand is a huge skill. It's a huge deal, because even though, like I said, even for me, I'm not a native speaker of any of these languages that I teach outside of English. It's just that I mentioned this in my video of in the previous video of finding the right tutor for you. The myth is that native speakers may have credibility because it is their language, but that does not mean that they have the ability to teach their own language. They're just like, I just speak it. Like, especially like people who just learn. I mean, like I said, they can help you with like practicing and things like that, but to explain it is sometimes difficult, because I sometimes watch my boyfriend trying to explain certain concepts that are so confusing to me, and he's just like, I don't really know. I do my best to explain it to you, but I don't know, So, that is a really big skill. And so I've had to really train that by looking and like noticing patterns and making sure that when I'm explaining different forms of conjugation, I'm able to look at it and say, okay, this, like, make the connection from here, like from L1. And then looking at the patterns of the conjugation, because conjugation is all patterns. All you have to do is just look at the endings of the words. And you can pretty much see which endings can go with which form of conjugation, if that makes sense. I feel like that's like an over explanation of a simple thing, but teaching has really helped me learn how to take concepts and break them into things that are simple and bite-sized for people to understand. Because teaching the subjunctive, as an example, that's something that I can't always do in a 1-hour session. So sometimes I need to break that into multiple things so that it's simple for people to grasp. And usually the other thing about is that has encouraged me to learn through teaching is getting feedback. Sometimes with students, they'll say, I want to focus more on this, or I want to learn how to talk about this specific topics, because sometimes students come in with things that I don't normally talk about. I have a student who is like, his profession revolves around sports. So for me, that's not a topic that I talk about on a regular basis, even in French, as an example. But I have had to learn that maybe it's great to do my own research, find those different topics, find vocabulary that would really enhance that person's career in that language, to enhance their personal life around that topic. So you're really getting a sense of having to getting feedback gives me a sense of, it's like giving me like a compass of knowing what should I really focus on, like what should I research, what should I spend more time, especially if it's something that you don't know, especially like things that you don't know or you're not sure of. It encourages you to get resources so that you can actually effectively teach it, because you can't teach something you don't know without doing proper preparation. And even on that note, it just encourages me, it challenges me to, like I said, go out there and find those things and simplify it. Because the way that it is as a teacher, your job is not necessarily to be, I would say, not necessarily to be a master in everything. You should be a master of learning information. Like I said, teachers should be professional learners who learn information and they find ways to recycle that information to someone else in bite-sized amounts. So, I mean, when you really think about it, is when you have a more student-centered classroom, or in this case with tutoring or online courses, is you're getting feedback on what people want to learn, and that gives you the direction of of what you need to be really learning, so that you can teach it. Like I said, you don't have to be like the master, like I know everything. And I will just tell you right now, do not ever take lessons from a teacher who says they know everything, because that is absolutely false, especially if they are not a native speaker like me. I'm not a native speaker of any of these languages. Those are like my main things I would say when it comes to how teaching languages can really help me actually be able to learn, in a general sense. It also, and if you are a language teacher, that also is a way to really shift your focus, especially because that's how I've been able to have students come directly to me. Like I said, it's my job, especially because my specialty is more so in beginners, because that's a point where people are learning, like, for example, that's where they need explanations. When you have someone who's at B1 or higher, they don't need you to teach them anything. It's more of practicing and reinforcing things and basically maybe inserting different vocabulary in there so that they're able to be on the same level as a native speaker. But it doesn't mean that, but usually at that level, you're really not like learning new things. It's more of like from A1 to about B1, that's where you're in that mode where you're learning different concepts. You need explanation. And that's where my expertise is. I'm good at explaining things. So, depending on where you are and what your specialties are, that's where you would really want to focus with your students. And also coming up next month on the first day of summer will be our launch of the second year we've launched this campaign for the Learn As You Go. So this is going to help us build scholarship funds for students to study abroad, as well as being able to give us the ability to create more resources for you as a language learner. So we hope to have your support. I hope this is helpful, and we'll talk to you all soon.